For those who know me, they would tell you that I love music. For those who really know me, they would tell you that I really love karaoke. So tonight, I will be testing the audience. We'll be testing your karaoke skills. And we'll be doing a little game called Fill in the Blank. We'll see the quality of the karaoke skills in the rabbit box. All right, here we go. You ready?
Yep.
Just a small town girl.
Living in a lonely world.
Great job. You've passed the first test. Second test. I got sunshine
On a cloudy day.
2 for 2. It is a cloudy day today. Last test. Mama. Oh, that was not it. Just killed the man. Just killed the man. Okay. So I love that the majority of the room was able to get most of the songs. Although we have different walks of life, it was through sound itself that can give us the clue of the lyrics. So a few days ago, I was watching what I would call trash TV on Netflix. And the dating game show host asked a contestant, "What is your toxic trait?" Now, for those who do not know what the young people are saying these days, toxic trait is a negative personal characteristic, something like cheating, or having an anger problem, or biting your toenails with your mouth, etc., etc. So tonight I will be telling Rabbit Box my toxic trait in karaoke. It's singing every single song like gospel music. So when people typically hear a Johnny Cash, they're expecting a "I hurt myself today, to see if I still feel." But when I sing Johnny Cash, I'm singing, "I wear this crown of thorns upon my lion's chest." I have a problem. That's how it sounds, that's how it goes. So in tonight's reflection and thinking about the theme, I wanted to reflect deeper as to why everything that I sing sounds like gospel. So I want to take you back to West Africa in December of 2019. I was going on a trip in Ghana with UGA on an agricultural scouting trip with a former boss and a UGA researcher, Dr. Greg Fonza, who was also, yes, someone knows Dr. Fonza, who was also a chief in the country of Cameroon. And as we discovered different cities, I did not realize that this trip would unravel my identities and identify my roots specifically. So yes, my mom did the DNA test to learn that some of our family was from Ghana and other places, but there was something about entering the slave castle in Ghana at Cape Coast. It was surreal. Tracing the journey of my ancestors through inhumane conditions, shackled, bound by chains, sealed in darkness, as they waited to be shipped off that coast by one of the 5 powers that benefited from the slave trade at that slave castle. And as they waited to go through the door of no return in captivity, there was a church built above the slave quarters. They would hear scripture and prayer and singing in a different language. Can you imagine the irony, the hypocrisy of leading church services above slave quarters? About 11 years ago, I took an African American studies course with Dr. Diane Batsmaro. And let me tell you about Dr. Morrow. She was an old school gal. She was the kind of teacher that you'd bring an apple to. She was the kind of teacher that when she walked in the room and she said, "Good afternoon, class," everyone would say in turn, "Good afternoon," because you knew better. And we learned that one of the favorite words of Dr. Morrow was the word transmogrification. So we're going to say that word on 3 with just as much significance.
Give me that.
1, 2, 3. Transmogrification. Great job, class. What does that word mean? It means the transformation of something in a surprising and strange way. In that very course, we learned there was debate amongst slave owners to share the gospel with the enslaved. Some slave owners wanted to share faith, while others believed that Christianity was too good for black folks. So a compromise was established that said, yes, we'll share the faith, but we will also use this faith to make sure that the enslaved are docile and obedient. And of course, not all books of the Bible would be shared with the enslaved people, because it was much easier to enforce that, because back then it was illegal to read. However, the brave and the bold would find resources and support to learn how to read. And they got their hands on a little book called Exodus. A book that talked about how God would raise up Moses to free the Jews from Pharaoh and escape slavery from Egypt. Powerful. How the enslaved transmogrified Christianity to be their greatest tool, their greatest faith, and their greatest hope. Now, while all were unable to read, there was a way to share stories, and it was through singing. It was through gospel music. What is gospel? It's dominant voices. It's harmonies with Christian lyric. It's hymns and songs originating in ancestral African music. It's hand clapping and stomping. It's a cappella. And before there were adaptations from gospel like rock or pop or folk or country or jazz or rhythm and blues or rap, there was gospel. And as I almost finished the Slave Castle tour, I was in front of the door of no return. And I'll be honest, my heart was shaking and my spirit was low, because I had just gotten a glimpse, just a glimpse, of what my ancestors had faced. But when I opened the door, I did not realize that I was opening the soundtrack of my life. To my surprise, the sea was filled with joy and life and African culture and merchants and craftsmen and boats and chants and singing. And as I walked through that door, there were flags to the left and flags to the right. And truly, those identities within me did unravel. My last name, Norton, is British, and that was one of the 5 powers that operated at that slave castle. But I saw a flag on the left, which was a flag from Haiti, representing my biological father's lineage. And I saw a flag from the right that made me smile, that was from the Bahamas, that represented my mother's lineage. And that little family that somehow went from Ghana to the Bahamas would transport themselves into South Florida, specifically Miami, Florida. That would be the place where generations of my family would put down roots. The place where my ancestors worked through mud and marsh and swampland that nobody found habitable. That would later be the place where Mother Eva Gibbons would be among the first women to be a minister in the Miami area. It would be a place where Father John Comer would be a civil rights activist, and he would fight for better living conditions for Black Miamians, so much so that the Miami Metro named the station after his work. Through transmogrified faith and transmogrified music, it shaped my mother, who is now called Dr. Tangela Fleming, a local activist in her community, and she's in clergy too. And although we didn't know all this history at that time, those values passed on to me, and her gift of music, her gift of singing, passed on to me too. Gospel will always be the soundtrack of my life. Sometimes it is hard, and sometimes it is heavy, but it can also be light and lovely, rich, repetitious, cultural, and transformational. One of the earliest songs I recall listening to as a child that crosses The genre of gospel is called His Eyes on the Sparrow. And I think about how there's so much meaning in that song, whether you were enslaved under a church or whether you are free preaching in the pulpit of a church. A powerful song like that can cross through time to provide strength, reflection, substance, and meaning. Why should I feel discouraged? And why should the shadows come? And why should my heart feel lonely and long for heaven and home? When Jesus is my portion, a constant friend is He. His eyes is on the sparrow, and I know He watches me. I sing because I'm happy. I sing because I'm free. His eyes is on the sparrow, and I know He watches me.